Let's get naked. Hi everyone, welcome once again to my podcast, Destroying Your World. And today we're going to be talking about body image. So I want to focus on body image because it has different implications if you're a woman, if you're a man, culture, society, how you grew up, the dynamics that we face. So today we're going to be talking about body image, and I wanted to speak on this mostly because if your world is you and yourself, right, then your body is included in that because it's the means of the way you interact with the rest of the world. Your body gives you the ability to use these five senses to process all this information. Not only that, but it's very much integral to the self. It's all in our brain, but our body matters just as much as a part of the self. Today I was speaking with Ms. Shaquana Shotwell, who will speak on the psychological aspects of body image, how they are different from men and women, the implications that they have on culture. But firstly, I wanted to speak from my personal standpoint. So I'm going to share with you guys a little bit about my experience with body image. I'm a girl. I'm Hispanic. That has connotations with it, right? If you think of like Spanish icons, J-Lo, Sofia Vergara, there's a little shape, you know what I mean? And so that's just like on a bigger societal scale. Even in my family, everybody knows that I don't look like the rest of my family. Not because I'm adopted or anything like that, but just for other reasons we'll get into in another episode. But yeah, so there's like very literal implications that body image has based off of how you grew up and the way you grew up. And so I wanted to speak on that. So basically, when you're growing up in an environment that says that you need to look a certain kind of way, that narrative is very impactful to how you view yourself. And so what I'm hoping for together is that you understand that your body only needs to serve you. You are the only person who needs to like your body. And when I say that, I mean that in a sense of like the internal validation is always going to mean way more than the external validation, because once you have that internal validation, like, you're unbreakable. And I want you to get to that point. I want you to be confident, to, you know, be that girl, be that boy, be that they them. Because you are, it's like you are top tier. And so what I need you to understand is that internal dialogue that you have about your body will be the most important one throughout your whole life. External validation is helpful. I'm not going to discredit that. Everybody loves a compliment. Everybody. But I do want you to feel good about yourself from within. And so I'm going to share with you guys a little bit on how I got to that point. And I speak about this also in the interview. But I'm going to go a little bit into detail. So the culture that I grew up in was predominantly Caribbean. With that implies a certain little body type, you know. The ones who know, right? But what that basically means is like this hourglass shape is very heavily in our culture, not only in Caribbean Hispanics, not only in Hispanics, in Black Caribbean countries. Just basically, that's the narrative, right? And that's with us living down here in South Florida. So you gotta be your little shapely or whatever. And that standard was also integrated in my household. Most people in my family are very shapely, and y'all don't know my shape. Maybe one day you will. There were points in my life where I did not feel great about my shape at all, about how I felt, and it started pretty early on. I understood, you know, like I was always like called chubby. I was always, you know, nobody ever wanted to call me fat for real, which is okay, you know, and I appreciated it because if they did, I probably would have cried. But I was a chubby kid for sure. And so with that narrative, especially like household names, right? My household name is Gorda. Let's sit on that for a second. And I know that a lot of you probably share that too. That, you know, especially like I said, in these countries and these cultures, they take that one insecurity and they drag it. And mind you, it wasn't even an insecurity before it became my nickname. Like, it was my nickname before I even knew I was insecure. You know what I mean? So I say all that to say that I didn't always start off at a positive place. Matter of fact, it wasn't until my later years that I came to be more positive towards my body. But what I did to help me was I looked in the mirror and I just had to sit there with myself. Like I was just breathing in and out, and I just looked and I was like, this is you. Whether you like it or not, this is you. This is what you look like. These are the features you have. This is who you are. Stared myself down. And I don't know if this will be too intimidating for anybody to try, but as you're listening to me, I do recommend that you try it just so you can get a feel for like what this journey for me entailed, and maybe it'll help you. So I stood there and I just looked, and my first thoughts was to say negative things. Oh, I don't like this part, this and that. I'll even share something with y'all right now. My face is lopsided. Like, don't look too hard. But it's lopsided a little bit, not too much. So I looked in the mirror and I started saying all these negative things. And until one day I was like, what if I didn't say anything? And I looked in the mirror and I didn't say anything. I just looked. I was like, yep, this is what my body looks like. These are my features. Just like that. I think growing into that self-awareness kind of helped me pick like my style. Like these clothes look good on me. These colors look good on me. These XYZ. So just kind of accepting it at face value. So if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. That's one. Two, as soon as I became neutral with looking at myself, like as soon as I was able to look at myself and have no thoughts, then I went in looking for some good thoughts. And I was like, ooh, you see her body ting? Miss Shotwell speaks about this in her interview. She says start off with something small. Start off with something small, but you're thinking small when you need to be thinking big. It'll get there eventually though. So I say all this to say that you pick 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever you can say nice about yourself. And another thing that helped me was my ability to appreciate my body. So I was like, even if I didn't have nothing nice to say about how I looked, I was like, this is the body that takes me to school. This is the body that allows me to create the arts. This is the body that allows me to see. Probably have this deeper appreciation because, like I said, I'm an artist. I make paintings. The painting from our last video is also by me. If you want prints, leave it down in the comments below if you want prints. I'm going to run through the whole journey again. You start by looking at yourself. You stop saying the negative thoughts. You become neutral to those thoughts. And then, like I said, that next step for me was being able to appreciate not necessarily what I look like, but what my body could do. So if you can't like your body for what it looks like your body for what it does. And then I started finding little features. Look at the dimple. Come on. I started looking for little features that I liked about myself. And so with that, then it grew into more of like, I like myself in these clothes. I like when she wears this. I'm going to try to wear this because I like it. And it grows into different things. So that is a little bit about my body image journey. I hope that helps you. I'm going to turn over into the interview now with a little warning. I did record it off a different camera. The quality is different. Spare me, please, because the content is immaculate, 10 out of 10. So with no further ado, please welcome my special guest,
Shaquana Shotwell. So I am a counselor and life coach. I have a master's in psychology. I have a therapy company and a nonprofit for young adult girls, teen girls, mainly at-risk youth. So those are like one of my biggest projects that I'm working on right now. So I do a lot of community service work.
How did you come into this line of work?
Childhood experiences, personal, from my personal life, things that I went through in my childhood, and I wanted to be able to help girls who went through similar experiences as myself to be able to help them navigate through life and empower them to thrive through their trauma.
So we're going to get right into the interview today. So the topic of the day is going to be body image, how we cultivate body image, how that's been implicated into ourselves via our culture, via the world around us. So I wanted to ask, when do we become aware of our bodies?
So that's a really good question. I would say as early as childhood years, from like a toddler, right? So you're growing up, you're a baby, you're learning the different parts of your body, how they function. You're starting to associate, what you can do with them, how it makes you feel. But I would say when you think about consciously, when you become aware of your body, that can vary from person to person, depending on how they were raised in their household, depending on how they, what they learned about in school, academics, environment. So I would say when you're aware of your body image, probably in your toddler years, but consciously when you're aware, when you're beginning to associate the different parts and how they make you feel and how you look to the outside world, I would say that would vary. But for the most part, I would say for girls, normally at an earlier age, because we have so much, I would say so much is like put on us for a body image, like there's so much pressure on us about how we look, how we dress, how we talk, how we walk. So I would say for girls, probably an earlier age for girls than it would be for young boys.
And how do you think gender plays a role on how we feel about our bodies?
Back to what I was saying, like the pressures. There's so much pressure from society that's put on women about how we look and how we dress. And then that normally determines how we interact with others and how people view us. And I know you heard this whole thing called pretty privilege. They talk about it a lot on social media. And it is a thing, it is a thing in society. So for women, it's so much pressure on them to be pretty. And then pretty, that's a standard, right? Because pretty it's subjective. So what's pretty to you may not be pretty to me. So I would say for women, it's just so much pressure on a woman to look a certain way at an early age, opposed to boys. Not saying they don't have pressure on them either, because they do. But I would say for women, it's just something that we're more aware of at an earlier age in life.
How do you think this pressure differs? Like, how do you think the implications of it differ for men and for women? Do you feel like men maybe have a more like laxed experience when it comes to experiencing their bodies because they don't have this pressure?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a male, so I can't really speak, but I would say, I would say, I believe so. Just because, like I said, there's not as much pressure on them from society to look a certain way, but I would say it's more pressure on them to be a certain way, if that makes sense. So I would say for women, it's more so look, and for males, it's more so the being. So they still have pressures, just different type of pressures.
Okay, I agree with that. And what do you think the role that how you feel about your body and your body image plays on your regular life?
The importance on a daily life will be, for one, confidence and self-esteem, like self-identity. I have this whole thing where I say the better you feel, the more productive you are. I think your self-confidence directly affects your productivity. When you wake up in the morning, this is why I always encourage my girls to do morning affirmations, because the better you feel about yourself, the better you'll feel about completing your assignments. So it's all about how we view ourselves. So it goes back to that self-identity. And I think body image plays a huge role in that. I used to have this thing where I used to call it like happy weight, right? That was a weight that I felt more comfortable in, a weight that I was happy in. And when I was that size, I was just a happier person. And we all know that when you're a happier person, things just work out better for you, right? Because you're happier, you're nicer to other people, you're kind, people interact better with you. So I think when it comes to your daily life, is completely tied to your self-confidence and your productivity. That's how I feel about the daily effects of it. Every day, you're the person that have to look at yourself in the mirror, right? You're the first person that you see. So if you're not happy with that image that you see, that's going to affect how you interact with yourself and how you interact with others on a daily basis.
And could you speak a little bit more on how affirmations are helpful, especially, or does it matter like what time of day you said that you tell your girls in the morning? I'm assuming that's because if you're happy in the morning, you're gonna carry yourself out happier. But some people have, nighttime routine and regimens, and they like to do things before they sleep. So, can you speak on how affirmations are a very useful tool in terms of like feeling good?
I would say because it's a way that you could affirm yourself, that self-validation instead of looking for the outside validation. So it's one of those things where if I can solidify me within myself first, then I'm not really walking out in the world looking for that, because I've already done that, right? So that's why I say the morning, you start off with your morning routine. Not saying you can't do it throughout the day. It depends, because you may experience something throughout that day and you may have to affirm yourself again. So it's something that you can continue throughout your entire day, but it's something that you definitely want to start your day off with because it's more effective in the morning time. Because like I say, when you get up in the morning, the first thing you do is what? You get up in the mirror, you brush your teeth, you wash your face. So that's the first thing that you're going to see is yourself. So if you can do that in the morning, mainly in the mirror where you can see yourself and it's like you're, like I said, you're affirming yourself. But if you do it in the mirror, it's even more effective because you're looking directly at yourself. So it's like you're talking to someone else because sometimes it's easier for us it's one of those things where it's like practice what you preach, and it's easier to kind of support someone else than it is to support yourself. So it's like when you're doing it in the mirror, it's like you're tricking your mind, like I'm supporting someone else, but you're actually affirming yourself.
And what advice would you may have for somebody who struggles with looking in the mirror?
I would say little by little, baby steps, right? Because you do have, people that do struggle with looking at themselves in the mirror, right? So I would say maybe you can start with reflections, right? Maybe taking pictures, because looking in the mirror, like I said, that's like that spot on right here in your face, bam, right? So maybe you can start out by taking pictures of yourself, little selfies, because a picture you don't have to look directly at. You can just say, oh, I don't want to see it anymore, throw it away, delete the picture. Like we
Right,
normally
it's
do,
just
take like
one moment in
50 million
time.
selfies, right? But it's like the mirror is more like facing yourself. So I think you can start out by taking pictures, maybe start out by looking more at your reflection, start speaking kind to yourself, speaking words of confidence to yourself. Start off by that. I think the more that you affirm yourself through words, it'll be easier to see yourself in the way that you're affirming yourself. So for example, I would say if you feel like you're overweight, right? I would say every day, try to tell yourself, I love my weight. This is my happy weight. Like I say, my happy weight, what I call it. I'm comfortable in my body. I love how my body looks. So that way it's almost like you're working yourself up to love what you start to see when you look in the mirror. If that kind of makes sense.
No, it makes sense. Starting off with what you can to work with what you want in a way.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can you speak on vanity? Is there a loving yourself too much or loving what you see too much? Do you believe in that, or what do you think about that narrative?
I think it's a thin line, right? Because you want to love yourself a lot, right? But I think I always tell my students, I want you to overlove yourself, right? But I don't want you to overlove yourself to where that love begins to affect how you see other people. Meaning that if I am overloving myself so much to the point where I am looking down on others as if they're like beneath me, then now it's a problem, right?
Right.
But I do want you to overlove yourself. I do want you to think like you're the best thing in your world, right? Because it is your world, right? But when that starts to become an issue to where it's more so like I'm comparing my love to others, like, oh, this is me and that is you type of thing, then that's when it starts to become an issue. But that line is very thin, because I think in the beginning, when you start that phase, everything is like extreme, right? Because if you're already here, the goal is to get you here. And I've seen some people go from here to there, like they say 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah.
I've seen people do that, and then it's like this over, it's just everything is just so extreme for them. But I think you just have to find that balance to where it's like I love myself, and I think that what I think about me doesn't change how I think about you.
So, how do you feel that our culture impacts how we feel about our bodies? How, like, our immediate culture in terms of like our household, and then our greater society, and then our literal cultural background, nationality, race, heritage, things like that.
I want to start with nationality because when we think about that, we think about different body shapes. And I'm going to speak on women because, like I said, I'm a woman. So different nationalities, we know for some women, some are more fuller, some have, more filled in hips, more rounder bottoms, more fuller breasts, just depending on your nationality, right? So I think every woman is not particularly blessed to have that all the time. And I've seen it in certain cultures where families are like, oh, and this has happened to me as a child, like, oh, you're shaped like them. You're not shaped like us. So
Mm-hmm.
now you become this outsider. Now you're being compared to all of the other women in your family that's more culturally accepted, where you're just like over here, like, well, this is how I was born.
No, yeah, literally. I've been compared to people who aren't even my family, and they'll be like, well, you made me and I don't look like you. What does that say about you? I wasn't a part of that process.
Mhm. Right, right. And then I have a daughter and she looks at me and she's like, oh, mom, your butt is so big or whatever. And I'm like, whoa, so I instantly try to get her back in a state of mind. Like, look, we're all created differently. Although you came from me, your body may not look like my body, but you're
Mm-hmm.
still my blood child. But I get it because, like I say, this is something that I experienced in my family. And I think, when it comes to the nationalities, this happens a lot for women because as moms, and then, those cycles that I don't even want to get into the trauma cycles, but, we see things a certain way. And then it was not that certain way, we automatically reject it. Like it's automatically a problem with it. There's no in between where it's like, oh, okay, well, this is you, this is me. No, it's more like, I am better, you're just garbage, like you're almost
Mm-hmm.
discarded. So I think when it comes to the nationality, that plays a huge role. And then culturally too, let's think about like social media right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just how the expectations of how women are supposed to look and how women are supposed to dress and how they're supposed to wear their hair. I mean, there's always some type of debate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I try to focus on what I like. This is something that I tell my students, what do you like, right? Because there's no such thing as this is better and this is bad, like it's all about what do you like, what looks better on you. So I think when it comes to that, it's just varies so much. Oh my gosh. And I think women struggle with that because it's that constant comparison of how should I look? How should I dress? Is this the right way? Are they going to talk about me? Is it acceptable?
So in terms of like women comparing themselves to one another, do you think that comes with this also, like, I hate to say it because it's not something that I agree with, nor do I think that other or majority of women do, but I have heard of like this like competitive culture where it's like I have to be better than. I feel like that even might even go to speak like also culturally and within our families is kind of competitive narrative. So do you feel like this comparison between one another leads to that kind of mentality?
Yes. I'm going to go a little deeper with you on this
Mm-hmm.
because it's parenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything starts in parenting. And a lot of women go through a life of being raised by a competitive mother,
Mm-hmm.
a mother who constantly competes with them. So this is just a cycle that continues. So I grew up in a household. I have a mom that's constantly telling me, oh, well, I do this like this. Why are you doing it like this? You look like this. I look like this. Your hair's like this. My hair's like this. You're shaped like this. I'm shaped like this. Right. So now as I'm growing up, I'm maneuvering through life. I think this is just the way it's supposed to be. Right. Because
Mm-hmm.
the first example of relationships and how we interact with others, we learn that through our parents.
Mm-hmm.
They're the first teachers in our life. So I think for women, they don't understand it. They don't even realize it, but it's something that was almost embedded in them through motherhood, through their childhood, from their moms. And then they just maneuver through life doing the same thing with other women. You see it so much. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost to the point where this is why a lot of women, and I call it coveting spirit. I
Mm-hmm.
noticed that a lot of women don't want something until another woman has it, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
almost as if I don't even feel good about having something unless I know I took it from somebody else, unless I know I won it over from another woman, because it makes me feel good to feel like I beat someone else at their own game, right? That
Mm-hmm.
competitiveness again. But like I said, it's something that for many women that is embedded in them from childhood. And unless they become self-aware of it, like conscious of it, it's just going to be a cycle that they will continue on, even with their daughters, you know? and like I said, I could get personal with you. It's something that I experience, and this is why these are cycles that I break with the women that I meet, and when I do my social circles, because I notice a lot of women are just oblivious to it. They don't even realize that they're constantly living their life comparing themselves to every woman that they meet, even their own daughters.
And how do we go against this? Like, what is the way to break this in our minds? Because, like you said, it's embedded in so many different cultures, so many different aspects. You might not realize it with your parents, but it might be something you subconsciously do with your peers.
The first step is just acknowledgement. You have to be aware of what's going on. Like I say, many of us, I remember for me, I didn't even realize I did it. It was something that someone had to point out for me. But here's the thing with the pointing it out, right? If you're surrounded around all women that do this, who's going to point it out? So it takes you to get outside of your normal circles for someone who wasn't raised the way that you were to say, hey, I noticed that you do such and such. Do you notice you do that? Just something so simple. And that's how it was pointed out to me. Like, I noticed that you always do this. Where do you think that came from? And like I said, it took me to get outside of my normal social circle for someone who wasn't used to that to be able to point that out for me. So I think it takes you to be able to be, for one, in an environment where it doesn't occur. And then for two, for you to be able to just become self-aware of that. And then three, for you to be in a space where you can receive it, right? Because I've tried to tell women like, hey, you notice you do it. And they're like, oh, no, 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 that's not. So I would say the first phase is environment, change of environment. The second would be self-awareness. And then the third would be acceptance. You have to be able to accept these things that are affecting you that you may not be aware of.
That's absolutely true. And do you think that kind of exposure? So if somebody, let's say, like, for example, right, somebody tells you, oh, you have this tendency, you have this behavior, but you're still in that environment. Do you think that you can still change yourself and also be in that environment? Or do you think you need to isolate yourself in order to grow or reflect upon what somebody called you out on?
Okay, so two, it can be either or, right? I think the isolation is mainly for someone who knows that they're not strong enough to be able to do it in that environment. Because change takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of conscious effort. I mean, daily conscious effort of you saying to yourself, I don't want to be this way anymore. I want to do this. The simplest way I can put it, and I tell my friends this and we laugh about it all the time. I'm like, listen, we've been getting it wrong all this time. So the best thing to do is just do everything that you wasn't doing before, right? Like, let's just,
Okay.
whatever you was doing before, just do the complete opposite. That's like my simple way of telling them, just do whatever you wasn't doing before if you want to see some type of change. But we know that change happens over time, right? This is not a quick fix. It's not something that we could just wake up in the morning and say, hey, I'm changed. No, you're going to revert back. You're going to relapse, just like people on drugs, when they're in rehabilitation, relapse is normal. And it's the same thing when you're changing your behaviors, right? You're going to change, but then one day you might go back and do the same thing.
It's
So I
true.
think when you're in that same environment, it's easier to relapse. It's easier to revert back to those behaviors. So when you go into that self-isolation, it's like, okay, now I'm in my solitude. Now I can sit with myself. I can hear my own thoughts. It's easier for me to change because I don't have it right in my face and someone like influencing me to continue those behaviors anymore. So I think it can be done in that same environment, but it's just going to take a lot more conscious effort.
Being willing to do especially drastic changes will show you, because when you said everything, I internalized it as everything. So I think that making those big changes kind of make you reflect on all the little things that you might want to still incorporate but also get rid of in terms of like making that kind of progress. So you also spoke about social media being influencing how we feel about ourselves. And I wanted to ask, how do we lessen what other people or society or the media portrays to be what's right for us and our bodies?
I would say, listen, stay off social media, right? It's easier said than done. But this is something that I try to encourage my daughter to do. Because the more you're on it, the more it's going to affect your self-image, your self-identity. This is just, they've done so much research on this, so many different studies, and they have shown that social media is affecting people's mental health, right? So these are not something that we're just throwing out there. We're not making this stuff up. Like, this is a known fact. So in knowing this, if you want to lessen the effect that it has on you, you have to lessen the time that you spend on it. Not saying that you can't go on there and indulge, or you also have to curate your timeline for things that are more positive for you, things that, would encourage you. That's something that I do because I do so much business on social media. I just curate my timeline to fit me. So I don't have certain things on my timeline that I feel that way make me feel some kind of way, or if it's going to put me back in that competitive behavior or comparing myself to other women. I just don't put myself in that situation. I think I know it's easier said than done, but you just have to have enough discipline to limit your time that you spend on social media. And then, like I said, if you are going to spend a lot of time on there, you just have to curate your timeline for something that's just more compatible to what you're trying to do in your own life. And then also, too, if you see it, just try your best not to compare yourself to it. Try not to internalize what you're seeing. Something that I see a lot of people say to make themselves feel better is, oh, social media is fake. Everything on there is fake. And we all know everything on there is not fake. A lot of people say that because it keeps them from internalizing, right, what
I
they're
say
seeing.
it.
Yeah, and I get it. And trust me, I completely understand that viewpoint. So that's why when people say it, I'm like, yeah, but everything on there is not fake. But if that is something that you have to say to yourself to keep you from internalizing it and comparing yourself to what you see on there, so be it. That's almost like an affirmation. It's like you're affirming what you already feel. Like, I don't want to take this in, so this is fake. I'm going to say that this is fake, right?
Yes, that's interesting. This is me speaking on a personal note. I said a lot of things are fake, not because I literally mean them as being fake. Just now, I realized that it just very much literally might be a way to just not internalize external information. Not because it's not real, because social media can be real and it can be fake. I mean, it's still out there, but everybody kind of has this notion in the back of their mind that what is portrayed on social media is always going to be the best of somebody's life, somebody's vacation, somebody's business, somebody's, so using that, would you call it a defense mechanism? Is that an appropriate term?
It could be both. It could be a defense mechanism and it could be a coping mechanism, right? This is how I'm coping with it. I don't want to compare myself to it. So the way that I'm going to cope with it, I'm just going to say that it's not real to keep me from comparing, right? Or it could be a defense mechanism to say, I just want to completely avoid that feeling. So I'm just going to say that it's fake. So it can be a little bit of both, just depending on how it affects you mentally and emotionally. I would say that's what will determine whether it's a defense mechanism or a coping mechanism.
So I wanted to know, you said that when you're doing your teachings with your students, that you often want them to understand what they like for themselves. So how does somebody figure out what they like for themselves in terms of their body and what they want to wear, how they want to look?
I would say all about the feeling. I'm really big on body, mind, and how it's all associated together because it's all connected, right? So I work on the feeling. How do you feel when you wear this? How do you feel when your hair is like this? How do you feel when you're this size? Remember, I talked about that happy weight. I'm happy when I'm a certain size. So that's how I feel. So that is what I would say. Focus more so on the feeling opposed to the external things that you're receiving. So when it comes to finding out what you like, if I know that every time, like for me, I love to go bike riding on the beach, right? It makes me feel so good. I just get this freeing feeling. My mind is at peace. I don't have all these thoughts racing through my head. So I get a good feeling when I do that. So I would say focus on the things that make you feel good. I know it may sound cliche, but I promise you, the feeling is what affects our decision making, right? So the moment you can focus more so on how it makes you feel, if you know you wear a certain outfit and you don't feel good about it, then that's not the outfit for you.
Oh, absolutely. If I don't feel good, I'm not going out.
Right, right. So that's what I'm saying. I think we have to just focus more on that feeling. If you know that when you're a certain size, you don't feel good, meaning you feel tired, like you're constantly fatigued, you feel a little insecure, then that's not the weight for you. But I don't think anyone else should determine those things for you but yourself. So I always try to keep my students to focus back on them. Everything is internal. Everything is all about you. The externals is irrelevant, honestly. Those are just the extras, right? So I just want them to focus on that internal validation and approval within themselves. What makes you feel good?
So how do you combat the idea of, well, when I wear this, people give me compliments, and so that makes me feel good, that external validation?
It can be healthy at times, right? Because we want to feel good, right? We want to get, and then depending on how you grew up religiously, if you grew up in a Christian household and we all were created in the image of God and God likes to be praised, that means we would like to be praised too, right? So people like compliments, people like to feel good. They like to know that other people feel good about them. I think it's healthy, but it becomes unhealthy when you begin to place their validation over your internal validation. That's when it becomes a problem. I don't think it's anything wrong with wanting to get compliments from others or wanting to feel good about how other people feel about you. But when it starts to affect how you feel about yourself, then that's when it has become unhealthy.
And so what are ways where we can identify the unhealthy ways we think about our body?
Oh, here's one, right? That we don't notice that people do a lot. So I just want to throw this out here because it may be something that we can say. You know how when you get all dressed up and you're like, just feeling so good, I look so good. And then you go and you ask a friend or maybe your lover and you're like, what do you think about this? And they're like, I don't think that looks good on you. And then it instantly changes your entire mood. I would say that's one of the unhealthy ways for body image. When you get to that point where you're constantly seeking someone else's opinion over your own, and then it weighs heavier than your own opinion of yourself, that's an unhealthy way that we look at it. But I want to throw the example out there because I used to do that a lot, but now it's like when I put on something, oh, this is what it is, baby. Like nobody is gonna tell me it doesn't look good. Like once I picked it out and once I put it on, oh, it looks good. But that happened over time, right? I went from not even being able to go in the store and buy something without calling a friend and FaceTime and like, hey, what do you think about this? Or mom, how do you think this will look? Or how do you think I should wear my hair with this outfit?
I think that what you said, it goes very unnoticed because you just want a secondhand opinion. And I think that's how a lot of people, kind of that internal dialogue is like, well, I look good. I want to make sure other people know I look good. So I don't go out, especially with the whole like looking crazy. I don't want to go out looking any kind of way. But I think that I want to just stress what you just said when that other person's validation goes above your own. Because if you felt good to be able to be knocked down so instantly, it obviously has like very detrimental effects.
Things that we internalize growing up in our childhood, like bullying, which a lot of us may experience that even if we don't notice it's bullying. Things that our parents may tell us. If you never had a parent in your household tell you that you're beautiful or you look nice, or like I know something my dad did when I was growing up as a child, every day he would tell me that I was beautiful. Every single day. It was not a day that went by that he didn't tell me that. And I'm grown. And every time he sees me, he's like, oh, baby girl, you're so beautiful. I like your outfit. He always compliments me. So I think that plays a role too in body image in unhealthy ways because some people grow up in households where their parents are constantly telling them that they're fat. Oh, you're fat, or your hair is ugly, or you're bald headed. I've seen children that were raised in households like this. So I think those are unhealthy ways that you can have a negative view on how you see yourself and your self-image.
And how do we transform our ways of thinking into positive ways? How do we identify the positive ways we can or we do think about our bodies?
I would say you take the best part of you and you love that part of you. And then eventually you pass it on to the other parts, right? So it's like something that we do in therapy. We work on you part by part. So eventually you can put all those parts together and you can love them all. So I would say you take that one thing that you already love about yourself and then you expand on that. So if you feel like I have beautiful lips, okay, I have beautiful lips. I love my lips. Oh, and I love how my lips look on my face. Oh, my lips make my face look very beautiful. And then now you're going to your face. So as you move up, then it's like, oh yeah, I like how my lips complement my eyes. Oh yeah, my eyes are really nice. So it's like you're building upon that one thing. And eventually, if you continue to do that, you'll start to love all of you. It may be a process, it may take some time, and it's going to be a conscious effort. But the more you do it, eventually you'll just be like, I love all of me, you know?
I do. I understand that completely. And through even out my own journey, there were points in my life where I didn't want to look in a mirror at all. And then I would start and I was just like, okay, this is me. This is who I am. This is how the world is going to see me. So if the world has to see me, I have to see me too. And then before getting into positive things, I could say I would start off with just being neutral, right? So like, let's not fish for negative things. Let's just understand that this is what we look like at that moment. And then, like you said, starting off with the little things, because even if you don't realize it, at least for me personally, it grew into so much more. It grew into something bigger without even noticing. So it really is about the baby steps towards wanting to feel good, especially. And those are all the questions that I have. Thank you so much. So is there anything else you would like to share?
So you can follow me on Instagram at Bay Therapy and TikTok at Bay Therapy also. And if you need any type of women empowerment, body image is something that I focus on. I focus on childhood trauma and narcissistic mothers. So those are my specialties. And I help women to just overcome that childhood trauma. So my whole thing is, listen, break toxic cycles and build healthy relationships. So that is what my business is all about. And yeah, so just follow me. And thank you for having me.
Once again, a special thank you to my special guest, Ms. Shaquana Shotwell. Very much so appreciate having guests on the show. If you guys have guests that you feel like can speak on certain things, there's no guarantee that they'll be on. But please leave them below. I am more than welcome to talking to a whole bunch of different people. We have a very interesting lineup so far. So please leave them all in the comments below. Leave the topics that you want us to analyze in the comments below. Leave any information that you like. Positive thoughts, critiques to a certain degree, not too much. Like I said, I'm a little fragile at heart, so be gentle with me. Thank you all so much for tuning in. You guys can find us on Destroying Your Worlds. Stay tuned. We have some exciting stuff over on this side. If you want to be the best version of yourself, if you want to explore different topics with me, if you like hearing my voice, seeing my face, anything, any kind of support, very much appreciated. Much love to everybody around. See y'all in the next one.